It's Monday, June 30th, 2025. One big beautiful bill, or monstrosity, depending on who you ask. Another historic session at the Supreme Court concludes, and a communist calls for the genocide of billionaires. Next on the AM Update.
The goals in this bill are a safer America, a stronger America, and a more prosperous America.
Let's see, we're cutting, 1.7 trillion. Think of it.
We are taking the politics out of ship naming. We're not renaming the ship to anything political, unlike the previous administration.
Do you think that billionaires have a right to exist?
I don't think that we should have billionaires. Wouldn't that be the irony of history, would be that the man publicly worrying about the Antichrist accidentally hastens his or her arrival?
Well, if you've been paying attention and you've wondered why it seems like North Carolina Senator Tom Tillis just seemingly goes out of his way to be a thorn in the side of President Trump, it's because that's exactly what's been going on. Finally, Trump lashed out, for good reason, at Senator Tom Tillis over the weekend for his continued just clogging up the works and gumming up the works of the one big beautiful bill. Trump said in a post on Truth Social, quote, "Looks like Senator Tom Tillis, as usual, wants to tell the nation that he's giving them a 68% tax increase as opposed to the biggest tax cut in American history." Trump then went on to light Tillis up for another paragraph or so. Well, on Sunday, after Trump issued that message, Senator Tillis announced he's not running for re-election, basically confirming what everybody suspected. He's just trying to act as one big FU to Trump on his way out the door. This all went down as Senate Republicans took a critical first step towards passing their sweeping budget reconciliation bill on Saturday night by voting to bring the package to the floor, setting the stage for a heated floor fight and grueling series of amendment votes. The vote to proceed to the bill was held open for more than 3 hours as GOP leaders worked to convince holdouts to let the package move forward. Finally, senators voted to take up the measure on a 51-49 vote. Vice President J.D. Vance was on hand to break a tie if necessary, but that ended up not being necessary. One of the voices that I have trusted on this budget battle, this reconciliation fight, is, of course, Congressman Chip Roy of Texas. I just think he's generally kind of seeing what is actually possible. He understands what's possible. He understands some of the good things, and he's said that, and he's championed the good things in this bill. While this fight was going down in the Senate over the weekend, Congressman Roy posted, quote, "Congressional Budget Office shows the Senate bill misses the House framework by $651 billion, including interest. The Senate lifted the debt ceiling another $1 trillion. The Green New Scam subsidies remain close to 50% intact. There's remaining numerous substantive problems from illegals on benefits to funding meatball surgery operations. It's loaded with tons of goodies and pork to buy off senators like whalers in Alaska." He's referring to Senator Lisa Murkowski in Alaska, who was a no on this bill until the last minute, and I think she probably got something thrown in to sweeten the pot for her. So that is kind of the opposed side to this bill. Meanwhile, the White House, along with Senate Majority Leader John Thune, say, nevertheless, this is still a good bill overall.
You've got to have the goals in this bill are a safer America, a stronger America, and a more prosperous America. And to your point, Dana, the average working American working family, I can tell you in South Dakota, if an average family in South Dakota, if we don't pass this bill, will face a $2,500 tax increase at the end of this year. That is the real world impact of this on people. Plus, you get the energy, the regulatory, the tax policy working in a way that creates economic growth, that creates better paying jobs, people's incomes go up, that enables them to do more for them and their families. So that's what this is about. It's about a growing, dynamic, expanding economy that makes America safer, stronger, and more prosperous for the long run.
On Sunday Morning Futures, President Trump says he agrees.
Cutting 1.7, let's see, we're cutting, 1.7 trillion. Think of it. I think I just saw the number a little while ago, $1.7 trillion. But we can grow our country so much more than that, and we're not going to have to do. You also have to get elected. When you do cutting, you have to be a little bit careful because people don't like necessarily cutting if they get used to something. And what I want to do is do it through growth. We're going to have growth like we've never seen before.
You'll recall that one of the senators who was a definite no vote on the One Big Beautiful Bill was Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. Well, he posted over the weekend, quote, Biden and the Democrats left behind enormous messes that we are trying to clean up, and open border wars and massive deficits. After working for weeks with President and his highly capable economic team, I'm convinced that he views this as a necessary first step and will support my efforts to help America on a path to fiscal sustainability. So Senator Ron Johnson said he was a no on this not that long ago. He says after talking to the president, he was convinced that this is a step in the right direction. Well, in other news, on Friday, what a historic day at the Supreme Court. Multiple good decisions. I think we actually went 3 for 3. Of course, the biggest one was the slapdown of nationwide injunctions by the nation's highest court. It was a case about birthright citizenship. That one tangentially got hit as well. But of course, all eyes were on Amy Coney Barrett, who wrote the opinion, the majority opinion in the 6-3 case that just slaps down nationwide injunctions. Notably, just keep this in mind. 5 other Supreme Court justices signed on to this majority opinion written by Amy Coney Barrett, who says this in that opinion, quote, we will not dwell on Justice Jackson's argument, that would be Ketanji Brown Jackson, we will not dwell on Justice Jackson's argument, which is at odds with more than 2 centuries worth of precedent, not to mention the Constitution itself. We observe only this: Justice Jackson decries an imperial executive while embracing an imperial judiciary. So 5 other Supreme Court justices signed on to language like that. Translation: they really, really can't stand Ketanji Brown Jackson. One of the cases that was upheld, or at least one of the laws that was upheld by the Supreme Court in a case that was released on Friday, it was a Texas law aimed at blocking children from seeing online pornography. Nearly half the states have passed similar laws requiring adult websites and users to verify their ages to access pornographic material. The law comes as smartphones and other devices, of course, make that easier to access online porn, including hardcore porn. Of course, it's something that most people in right-wing circles, or at least in Christian circles, have been shouting from the rooftops for decades now, just the easy access to pornographic material that our children seemingly have. And so now a Texas law, and this law is present in more than half the states. A Texas law now forces age verification, and the Supreme Court says that that is okay. Well, here's this. It's still years away from the 2028 Democratic presidential primary, but a new poll finds that voters don't see former Vice President Kamala Harris as their top pick. A poll from Emerson College released Friday found that former South Bend Mayor and Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg is the number 1 choice for Democratic primary voters in a hypothetical race. Among respondents who identify as Democratic primary voters, 16% say that they would support Buttigieg, while 13% said they would choose Harris as the nominee. But the poll identified a potential problem for Buttigieg when primary time comes around. He has 0% support. 0.0% support from black voters. I am trying as hard as I can. That is just the darndest thing. I'm trying to wrap my mind around why Pete Buttigieg, what is it about this guy that black voters would have a hard time supporting? I just can't put my finger on it. Well, it was announced earlier this month, and now Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has confirmed no more political naming for political activists for U.S. naval vessels.
Well, I'm pleased to officially announce that the Department of the Navy is renaming the Fleet Replenishment Oiler, formerly known as the USNS Harvey Milk, to the USNS Oscar V. Peterson. We are taking the politics out of ship naming. We're not renaming the ship to anything political. This is not about political activists, unlike the previous administration. Instead, we're renaming the ship after a United States Navy Congressional Medal of Honor recipient, as it should be. People want to be proud of the ship they're sailing in. And so we're renaming it after a chief, a Navy chief.
What a great way to ring out the artist formerly known as Pride Month, making sure you're tearing down their icons from U.S. Navy ships. I mean, Harvey Milk was a rainbow jihad icon for really the last generation, and I can't believe we ever even considered naming a ship after somebody who's just a pervert. Can't believe we even did that as a country, even under Joe Biden. But nonetheless, again, Hegseth righting some wrongs. Quickly before the break, here is New York City mayoral candidate, Democrat nominee Zohran Mamdani, just a communist saying communist things.
You are a self-described democratic socialist. Do you think that billionaires have a right to exist?
I don't think that we should have billionaires because, frankly, it is so much money in a moment of such inequality. And ultimately, what we need more of is equality across our city and across our state and across our country. And I look forward to work with everyone, including billionaires, to make a city that is fairer for all of them.
Wow. That's Zohran the Destroyer saying we should not have billionaires. You know, in fairness to him, it is a fairly common communist thing to just flippantly call for the genocide of certain populations. So there's that. I also wonder why, if I have $999 million, $999,999,999, am I safe from being genocided by Zohran the Destroyer? Am I safe? Why billionaires? Why not millionaires as well? I don't know, just things. He says we should not have billionaires, but I'm going to work with billionaires. Make that make sense. All right, when we come back, some poetic justice for a complete creep and pervert who used to work for the Washington Post, Dukes of Hazzard Redux, and Peter Thiel finds out he might be the Antichrist. Next. A Pulitzer Prize-winning Washington Post journalist was arrested and charged after authorities allegedly discovered child pornography on his work computer, as according to D.C. U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro. A Friday statement. Thomas Pham Legros, a 48-year-old video editor at the news outlet, was taken into custody Thursday afternoon after FBI agents raided his Washington, D.C. home and discovered a folder on his work laptop which contained 11 videos depicting child sexual abuse material, according to Pirro's office. FBI agents also discovered fractured pieces of a hard drive in the hallway outside a room where Legros' work laptop was found. Legros made his first appearance in District Court of Washington, D.C. on Friday and has a detention hearing scheduled for Wednesday. You'll never guess what this guy won his Pulitzer Prize for. He won his Pulitzer Prize, this guy that's being accused of possessing child pornography, he won his Pulitzer Prize for his work on the Roy Moore story. Of course, Roy Moore, not going to get into the whole backstory there, but he was a Senate candidate in Alabama who was credibly accused of some sort of not deviancy. It was very odd behavior many years ago. Credibly accused. This was during the reign of Kavanaugh. You'll remember that, Kavanaugh, when they turned that into a verb. It means just credibly accuse any Republican male at any point in the past of unwanted sexual behavior. Anyway, that was the backstory there. This guy won his Pulitzer Prize for his work. And by the way, Judge Roy Moore actually won a defamation suit having to do with that story back in the day. So, some poetic justice for that creep. Looks like the Duke boys have got themselves in a whole heap of trouble again, and it nearly took out a cameraman while doing it. Thousands flooded Somerset, Kentucky as a replica of the iconic General Lee, the bright orange 1969 Dodge Charger from the Dukes of Hazzard, jumped over Fountain Square in Somerset, thrilling fans with nostalgia and adrenaline. The Somersetites cruise marks its 25th anniversary by making a long-running joke a historic real-life stunt. What a cool thing. We truly are making this country great again. And now here's this. Tech billionaire Peter Thiel, who supported a lot of right-wing candidates over the course of probably the last decade or so. He was interviewed by the New York Times' Ross Douthat over the weekend, and he had some interesting things to say about technology and perhaps the rise of the Antichrist. Ross Douthat pushed back on him a little bit. Listen to this.
This is my very specific question for you, right? Is that you're an investor in AI. You're deeply invested in Palantir, in military technology, in technologies of surveillance, in technologies of warfare, and so on, right? And it just seems to me that when you tell me a story about the Antichrist coming to power and using the fear of technological change to sort of impose order on the world, I feel like that Antichrist would maybe be using the tools that you were building, right? Like, wouldn't the Antichrist be like, great, we're not going to have any more technological progress, but I really like what Palantir has done so far, right?
Yeah,
isn't that a concern? Wouldn't that be the irony of history would be that the man publicly worrying about the Antichrist accidentally hastens his or her arrival?
There are all these different scenarios. I obviously don't think that that's what I'm doing.
To be clear, I don't think that's what you're doing either. I'm just interested in how you get to a world willing to submit to permanent authoritarian rule.
Well, but again, there are these different gradations of this we can describe. But is this so preposterous, what I've just told you, as a broad account of the stagnation that the entire world has submitted for 50 years to peace and safetyism? This is 1 Thessalonians 5:3. The slogan of the Antichrist is peace and safety, and we've submitted.
Yet again, a scenario where I wish the AM update had a video element sometimes so you could see the look on Peter Thiel's face. Because I think his contention, what he was saying before this, is that he believes that the Antichrist, if there actually is one to come to pass, the Antichrist will actually use fear of technology to bring about his reign. And Ross Dothett, he's like, well, Peter, you realize that you've built a lot of tools. You realize that you've built a lot of tools that could be used against you in this fear campaign by this Antichrist. Wouldn't it be ironic if you were actually the one who was helping bring about the rise of the Antichrist? You could see Peter Thiel just completely, almost about spontaneously combusting there. The look on his face was like, oh, crap. Did I do that? Peter Thiel is I think he's homosexual, by the way, so no regard for women. Checks that box. And finally, air analysis, slightly acidic, mostly necessary. It's more housekeeping today than anything, and an update on my legendary run in one particular facet of my life. First, housekeeping. I said this towards the end, I think, of the episode on Friday, or maybe it was the beginning, can't remember. Long weekend, busy weekend. That most of this week I will not be back with current episodes. I have an interview that I'll air tomorrow, kind of getting a 10-year checkup on where the green crazies are in terms of their quest for domination of both the academic and political landscape. It's my perception that they're no longer taken very seriously amongst half the population. It's just dismissive. Whereas 10 to 15 years ago, we would earnestly try to debate issues about global warming, and then they changed it to climate change, and then now nobody takes that movement seriously at all. It's still there for sure, and tentacles of the green, the climate crazies, they've got their tentacles into everything. But it's my perception that maybe that movement has reached at least the absolute alarmism. That's kind of reached its apex and is now on the downswing. Well, we'll get somebody who's a lot smarter about these things than I am. We'll listen to his take. That would be Dr. Cal Beisner from the Cornwall Alliance for Stewardship of Creation. That'll be tomorrow. I might have some best of content for Wednesday and Thursday, but otherwise it's going to be kind of sparse around here. It's just the middle of the year. I've worked really hard on this so far this year, and I need a break just for family time and just my creative energies need to regroup. So that's the housekeeping. As far as the legendary run that I am on, you might have seen something I posted on Friday. I put out feelers for anybody who had experience getting cement off of their cars. Of course, I've got a lot of smart aleck responses. Hey, the best thing to do is not get cement on your car. Well, listen, numbnuts. Listen, here's what happened. I was just on my way home from work. There's this massive construction process that's going on near where I work. They're changing this Highway 6 8035 interchange into a divergent diamond, and it's just crawling with construction crews night and day. And of course, traffic just grinds to a halt on the daily now through this area. But I'm just there sitting in traffic one day recently, and out of nowhere, it just starts raining. Well, what I thought was dirt. I thought it just looked like dirt. Just started raining dirt. I don't know where it came from, which construction equipment it came from. Don't know what would have gone wrong to fling dirt that high up in the air. But the problem was it wasn't dirt. Looked like dirt to me at the very beginning of this process, but it was not dirt. It was cement. And it set on my car. And so now I've got all of these patches of cement all over my car. Now, I put out the feelers to see if anybody had experience with this, and somebody said, yes, use something called a clay bar. So I went to O'Reilly's, I got a clay bar, and it's this, I think it's called Mother's Clay, California Gold. It comes with this lubricant. You spray the lubricant on this area that you're working on. It's for car detailers mostly, but it works for this as well. You spray the lubricant on, you use this really fine clay, and you just start making passes at the area that you're working on. And by golly, it worked. It got the cement off. Very little damage to the paint job on the car. So that's really cool. But it's just the latest in this just absolutely legendary run that I'm on with my vehicles. I mean, I detailed that a couple of weeks ago. You know, the 1 in 878 billion chance that everything that happened to my Subaru Outback would happen to one car. Well, we're just adding to it now with cement. Just on my way home from work on a Tuesday, and it's raining cement. So there's that. Hope you have a wonderful Monday. Hope you have a wonderful Independence Day holiday. It'll be a little bit before we talk again with fresh content, but I hope to see you then, whenever that is, probably next Monday. Have a great one. Back at it again then. I'm Aaron McIntire, and this is the AM Update.